Alles Gute zum neuen Jahr.
Shana Tova.
Feliz Año Nuevo.
Чуво нововоршу.
Szczęśliwego Nowego Roku.
Gelukkig nieuwjaar.
Najbardziej szubkamnay. Z Nowym Godem.
新年快樂
Maligong bagong taon.
表现这样的对明个拉皮巴这些。
Bon année.
Nami saldi nga badanya.
Kali protokronia.
Buon anno.
新年快乐
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you for supporting all of us at the Queens Public Library. We wish you and your families a great New Year.
Begin 2023 with a library card. Get access to all our materials, including books, ebooks, e-magazines, music, movies, and more. Apply in person at your nearest QPL location or apply for an e-card online at queenslibrary.org. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is on January 16th. To honor this civil rights icon, we have special programs and recommended books and movies. Visit our blog at queenslibrary.org for more information. Join us for a new year of virtual author talks. Our Literary Thursday series brings you live conversations with amazing writers every Thursday at 6 p.m. Learn more at queenslib.org/Literary Thursdays. Celebrate Lunar New Year, the year of the rabbit, with our programs and book recommendations. You can learn more at queenslib.org/LNY2023.
Welcome to Queens Public Library's talk with musician Toshi Reagon, librettist, composer, and musical director of the opera Parable of the Sower, based on a novel by Octavia E. Butler. The Harvard Crimson states the reimagining of Butler's work as a gospel-inspired opera is nothing short of inspired. The show breathes fresh air into the genre of opera while examining the intersections of race, gender, class, capitalism, climate change, and religion in a way that feels lucid and urgently important. The New York Times calls Reagon's voice resonant, searing, and her music rich. The Boston Globe writes, Parable of the Sower ultimately leaves you with the feeling that perhaps the fate of humanity might be in pretty good hands after all. Hi, I'm Brian Alessandro. Culture Connection, curated by Daniel Zaleski and now in its 10th year at the Queens Public Library, is proud to present international artists from emerging talent to award-winning masters. These disciplines include music, theater, author talks, and film. Now expanding into a virtual format, Culture Connection is currently reaching a global audience. Toshi Reagon is a multi-talented and versatile singer, composer, musician, curator, and producer with a profound ear for sonic Americana. Her expansive career includes residencies at Carnegie Hall, the Paris Opera House, and multiple festivals and venues nationally and internationally. A highly collaborative artist, she has worked with many musicians, choreographers, film and theater makers, including Michelle Ndegeocello, Urban Bushwomen, Doran Stans, Nona Hendricks, Carl Hancock Rux, Alexis Pauline Gums, Robert Wilson, and her band Big Lovely. Toshi co-composed music for 2 Peabody Award-winning films. She is a 2015 She is a 2015 Art of Change Fellow by the Ford Foundation, a 2018 United States Artist Fellow, and an Andrew W. Mellon Creative Futures Fellow, Carolina Performing Arts. In 2021, Toshi received the APAP Award for Merit in the Performing Arts and was a 2021 recipient of the Herb Alpert Award in Music. In 2011, she founded the community festival Word, Rock, and Sword. Toshi Reagon and Bernice Johnson Reagon co-created the opera Octavia E. Butler's Parable of the Sower. Ongoing projects include Longwater's song Marine Mammal, Meditations with Alexis Pauline Gumbs, Octavia's Parables with Adrian Mary Brown. In 2018, Toshi started the production company Wise Reagon Arts. Wise Reagon Arts presents Octavia E. Butler's Parable of the Sower in the spring and summer of 2023, and the work-in-progress disco-based musical You're Having Too Much Fun, So We're Going to Have to Kill You. Toshi continues to tour as a solo artist and with her band Toshi Reagon and the Big Lovely. Now, if we can, let's please bring in Toshi.
Hey, hey.
Hi, Toshi, how are you? Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm going to teach you how to say my name now. Regan.
Regan. Okay, Toshi Regan. Welcome,
Yeah.
Toshi Regan.
There you go.
So, Toshi, thank you for joining us this evening.
My pleasure.
Aside from being a masterpiece about climate change and social inequality, what was it about Octavia Butler's 1993 novel Parable of the Sower that inspired you to adopt it into an opera?
Well, it's really a journey me and my mom took together. It's kind of a well-known story now that Toni Morrison invited my mother to teach at the Princeton Atelier, which is a workshop for an artist to teach a semester at Princeton. Mm-hmm. And my mom asked me to do the classes with her because she was busy. So we split the classes in half. And of course, we had to have a text. And my mother picked Parable of the Sower, which was a book I refused to read when I first got it. So, because I was like, I don't want to.
How come?
I could just tell because I've read a lot of Octavia books by then. So I could just tell it was going to be a handful. You know, it was like 30, it was like 25 years ahead at that point.
There it is.
But I think I really didn't want to actually hear what she had to say about the future because she's so accurate about everything. Even if she's telling us these, fantastic stories, there's such accuracy in them. So I was like, I don't want to know what she thinks about 30 years.
It's daunting and really disturbing and compelling. And as you said, frightfully accurate.
Yeah, she is. But she also just left a big, gigantic gem. At the center of the story is this activation of a belief system where you actually engage God as change, which is giving you the permission to believe what you know, giving you the permission to activate as opposed to like wait and see what can happen, giving you the permission to take care of each other in the simple ways. She doesn't use a lot of love and this like that. She's like, watch other people's backs, don't kill them and don't steal from them. And so she lays down a really great foundational message for the human species on the planet. Like there's ways we can be activating with each other to not be causing so many problems.
I think she was really prescient on some level, obviously, but also I think she was able to somehow forecast where we would be arriving at 30 years later collectively, I think, in social justice circles, with this sense of just very basic common decency and simply looking out for each other, and particularly the intersectionality of it all. So can you tell us a little bit more about the process? You mentioned a minute ago that your mother was one of the real facilitators of this endeavor. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, I mean, we both, she introduced me to Octavia's work. And so after we did that class with Toni Morrison, we were like, well, we could sing this book. So we started to ask, like, can we sing this book? We asked Octavia and the people who represent her. We had our own journey where we each, we had already read it a couple of times. Then we went away and we each read it again. And we went through every chapter and we kind of wrote what we thought was important about, each chapter separately. And then we came together and compared what we were thinking about. And eventually we did a workshop in 2008 with New York City Opera. And then that didn't work out because New York City Opera fired they didn't fire him, but they had an economic issue that made Gerard Mortier, who was the artistic director coming in, leave. And so that was it for it. But I told Mom we would get it done one day. So we finished writing a libretto, and through really good collaborations with I'm always up in the public theater, and so I've been playing shows at Joe's Pub forever. And Shanta Thake and Mayan Wong, they really were instrumental in seeing that I was working on something, and they kind of were like, "What's that? We want to, what are those songs you just sang at this show? Let's see it." And so that's really when this iteration took off, is when they heard me sing 3 songs from the opera, and then they were like, "We got to do this at Under the Radar," and that was 2015. By then, my mom had retired. So she was like, "Yo, if you want to do it, it's fine." But she's like, "You can call me, I'll help." But she was
like, "Here, I gave it to you. Now go run with it."
Yeah, my child.
So Octavia, of course, passed away in 2006, but she knew that you were interested in doing this beforehand. What kind of feedback or input did she give you?
None. She said, "You and your mother can do whatever you want with my work." That was it.
Wow.
And I was like, "We need the papers."
We need permission legally, right? So
yeah, she was just like, "Y'all can do what you want, kind of leave me alone, just go do what you want." And but she has really, great circle of folks who, Marilee, who represents her work, has been a really good steward. It's a reason why we haven't seen a lot of, bad things happen with her work. Because they've been really careful and mindful about their collaborations. The estate has. Yeah. So she really supported and made it possible for us to do this. We're not like a Broadway production. We're like an independent theatrical, company I made in order to do this work. And then a whole bunch of brilliant, amazing, people who have put their whole hearts into it, and that's how we've gotten it done.
Right. And I have to ask also, because the germ, the enzyme, was in a class taught by Toni Morrison, so she knew that you were working on this. She, of course, passed away 2 years ago. Did she give you? Did she get to see any of it, or did she give you any feedback along the way?
No, what Toni Morrison did really was she just is Toni Morrison. So that atelier, which I think is still happening, is really powerful because, you really do get to engage in something. When we did it, we weren't thinking, oh, this is going to be an opera or a musical or anything. We were using the book as a way to sonically line conditions that were in the book. And because almost everything that's a human condition on earth is in the book,
yes,
we are able to use, songs that we already knew to talk about what was going on throughout history. So really was centered in, Black American song, mostly from the South. And then each of us wrote a song, an original song based on the piece. And both of our songs are in the opera. Professor Morrison did not get to see Parable. We didn't before she passed.
So it was first staged properly, you said, in 2015 in Boston. Is that correct? No. Can you give us the timeline again?
2015, we did a workshop at the Under Radar Festival.
Right.
And then after we did the workshop, we got a lot of really positive feedback. It sold out really fast. People didn't really know the book or anything around the theater, but I told them, I was like, you don't understand, this is a book it's been taught in school forever. All of her work is, I'm like, she's a giant. She's amazing.
Yes.
And nobody had done anything there were no movies, there were no TV shows, there were no plays and nothing. So we the first ones that came out the box, and it sold out in a second. It was just and they had to add more shows. And then that's when we knew we had something. And then we went on a very quick journey to build the piece, because I was it has to debut in 2017, because I really wanted to not just do the show. I wanted to activate the paths that she talks about. So I made an initiative called Parable Path, which is to really understand that lots of people, lots of artists, lots of communities activate around Octavia's work. And most definitely, if they don't know Octavia's work, they activate around the conditions that we're all facing now. And I like to make the opera like a belly button. It's like kind of ritual. You're going to come in, we're going to sing this story. But really, it's a lot of, collaborating, talking like I'm doing now with you. This is like Parable Path, New York, New York City. And really making sure people see each other, touch each other, really deal with the practices and the ways that people and communities know how to take care of themselves and know how to be together, know how to create medicine, and really support those initiatives, really uplift, even just by being there and saying, yeah. And also saying somebody is doing this in other places. So it's really important that we see each other. The parable journey in the book is horrific. And it's like basically a group of people just start walking up a highway, and the conditions to set up that dynamic are happening right now. So it's really important for people to feel, I'm not sure anybody feels comfortable, honestly, but a lot of times people don't know what to do. And it's important that you see each other, and it's important that you really realize that you're right. Like if you're scared, if you're nervous, if you're like, you're right. If you have some bandwidth and some, any kind of currency, not just money currency, but any kind of currency to kind of, punch out of that fear and get into a relationship with other people or yourself to enact change, which is what we need, then yes, do it now.
It sounds very much like the development of the project was like Octavia's philosophy and her literature, organic and communal in a way, and that there was a great sort of synergy that propelled it forward. It almost seems like you were taking a meta approach to her book, in that you were living the principles that she writes about and creating this great tribute on some level to her and her wisdom. COVID threw a little bit of a wrench in all of this, right? Did I read correctly that tickets had gone on sale for the 2020 production? Or the 2022 production in 2020, and then people had to wait 2 years until COVID was over to see it. Can you talk to me about how the pandemic affected the development?
I mean, like everybody, we did a show right before the shutdown. It was really weird because we were in LA, so we were like where the story, we were where the story takes place or starts, and then we're starting to hear. It's just like when we were starting to see the news reports about the toilet paper hoarding and all of this weird things. And, half of us was like, that's dumb, that's nothing. And other half was like, should I get some more toilet paper? And we got to LA, and it wasn't, still weren't wearing masks. I had masks, I had wipes because I kind of did that anyway. And then I just remember the hotel we stay at is really dry. And I did a Instacart to see if I could get a humidifier. And I was like, a humidifier, some cough drops, some like kind of regular stuff that I need. And the sister was like, yo, there is nothing in this store. She was like, there's one humidifier. And she took pictures to send me how hit the store had been. It was just hit. Right. And we were in an 1,800 seat hall, and they, beautiful, Royce Hall. And they sent a thing to everybody saying, hey, if you're feeling nervous and you don't want to come, you can get your money back. And 3 people asked for their money back. And so it was almost full. I got hugged by 200 people that night. And then
it's beautiful, but also scary, considering it's right before the pandemic.
They were just saying don't shake hands. It was
people are hugging you.
It was happening kind of that day, and so everybody was so moved. It was just boom, boom. God. It was just it was so much love. And then I got on an airplane. I'll never forget. March 10th, I got on an airplane, and it was just a weird flight. It looked like people were escaping.
Oh,
And then
wow.
March 13th in New York, that was the shutdown. So
Yeah.
that was the last show we did.
Wow.
And we were supposed to do a show in Boston, like March 16th or 17th. And, you know, there was the energy of like, let's go, let's do the show, because nobody had mandated that they couldn't do it. And I talked to the two Davids at Arts Emerson, and I was just like, okay, but what if we didn't do the show? And they were like, well, you know, we what? And I was like, no, what if we didn't do it? Like, is that what people need? Like, they have such great community outreach. They're very close to the people who come. And so they did this beautiful thing. Like, they canceled the show. At the time, we still were like, oh, it can happen in October.
That was hopeful. That was wishful thinking. I think everybody was hoping for that.
We didn't know anything.
Uh,
So it was funny, but, you know, Arts Emerson and a lot of the other, you know, people who we're collaborative with, because we had this Parable Path initiative, methodology, we did a lot of work. I mean, we did a lot of things. We stayed in touch with each other. We presented things online. People did beautiful work and are doing beautiful work in the community. So you know, it's horrible. I mean, we have a chance to really jump to another level of understanding. And I think that, you know, if there's any kind of gift in COVID, is that, you know, your vulnerability comes from trying to get back to someplace that you're never going to be at again.
Right.
So as you keep trying to go back to someplace, then that's the more vulnerable you are. So if you're like, we don't want to wear a mask because we, you know, nobody's making us do it, and, you know, we feel like we're okay, and, you know, then you know, people are sick all the time now because we're not, you know, the government is not necessarily invested in your wellness, is more invested in keeping a line of money currency.
Oh, yeah.
And that's in conflict with wellness always. This country never made like money currency be connected to wellness. It's actually connected to death, destruction, and the stealing of human beings and what they have. So that country's never gonna align money currency with your wellness and health. Ever.
I happen to agree with you, and I think that we do have to sort of and I think people are waking up to that, you know, wellness begins and ends with you, and you need to sort of be the steward of your own health, be it medical, psychological, spiritual, behavioral. In addition to writing the libretto, you also performed during the production. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience on stage singing and playing music to the ideas of Butler?
Well, it's bananas because I'm not an actor at all. So I mean, it's been over 5 years, but I'm still in shock that I'm even in the show. Like, it just was like, you know, I did the workshops and I kind of, you know, narrated the workshops or navigated it. And Eric Ting, who's the first director, and now it's Eric Ting, a great partnership with Eric Ting and Signe Haraday. But I was saying to Eric, I was like, you need a way to navigate people through the story, because we can't obviously tell the whole story. They'd be in a theater for 4 hours. So we're like, make big jumps. And so I was like, maybe we should use like, you know, should we have, you know, some words across the stage? And he was just looking at me like I was crazy. You're just like, what? He's like, no, you do it.
You do it, yeah.
So bless them. It's taken me many years to kind of get comfortable in my chair. But it's amazing to sing the songs. I love the music. I love the story. I love the conversation that happen with the audience. It's a very, you know, the whole first act, we try to be in one space. We try to have the audience feel like they're in the same atmosphere as we are. And before COVID, we had audience on the stage with us. So there was like 2 sections where the audience could sit on the stage. Yeah. And then after COVID, most places cut that out. I think that's true for this run too. So, but when you had the people on the stage, it really was like cool because the audience could kind of see themselves, you know, on the stage. And then the second act, it goes into kind of more traditional theater atmosphere, and, you know, their lights go off and the whole thing. And the second act is more, mysterious and it's dark and unknown because that's where they are and they have to find,
Right.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's like very immersive, honestly. Are there any other novels or films you think you would adapt into an opera in the future?
I don't know. Like, I have like, a few things on my mind. The Disco Project is not necessarily, they're more based on events. So the Disco Project is looking at the the ritual death of disco music and simultaneously aligning a journey of holding and discovering joy and the content of your existence, and why there might be people really interested in damaging you for being the bright star that you are.
Wow.
And so I have
Will that be
another.
an opera or a theater
No,
or
that's going to be a musical.
musical?
Yeah, it's going to be a musical with a little bit of talking.
Some spoken word.
There's a lot of music. We got to workshop that up at Wesleyan, and then we
Okay.
did a workshop version at Symphony Space, and then we'll keep working on it. We'll do another workshop in the summer. And another piece I'm doing is called Working on a Building. And it really was like the look at the building of Brooklyn. And I thought it would stay like a Brooklyn story, but just during this COVID era, I don't know if this has happened to other people, but I was just like, where are all these buildings coming from and why? Like, why do we have this kind of obsessive building, gigantic buildings? And then I went to DC, and it was like, I have never seen so many gigantic buildings in DC, just like, in Southwest, just all packed, and they just building more and more and more. And then I went to Durham in the kind of year and a half since I haven't been there. Like, they have the same buildings, and they all have a certain look to them. They all have a certain vibe. And what's really I don't understand is they're wiping out trees. They're wiping out nature. And so you just see cement and people for days. And I was like, who is doing this? Who's making money? Is literally anti our crisis, our global crisis. Why we need green everywhere. We need water. We need affordable housing, and this kind of housing is not in collaboration with people or land at all. So it's really devastating to see how much power I bet it's a small entity of people have to really make such deadly circumstances for everybody. I mean, even
someone's getting really rich off of concrete, glass, and cement, and
there you go.
steel.
That's it.
That's
So
what's
I'm
happening.
I was first thinking about Brooklyn, but then I was like, wait, there's something happening, and it's
I think it's global.
Yeah, and it is global. Yeah. So it's very dangerous. Everybody, fight for your little pieces of grass, don't because it is a thing. And then there's a book I'm really interested in, but I can't say nothing now because I don't have any rights. But there's a book by somebody who's awesome. I wanna do kind of a dance opera vibration with.
Oh, that's fun. I love when you sort of mix mediums. Speaking of opera, though, since this is your foray into it on some level, what does it offer you, or what does it allow you to do that maybe other mediums do not?
I mean, it just means we're singing. That's all it means. It's not a big deal. Lots of places why do we have to call it an opera? We don't keep performing arts centers. They segregate a lot of times their what their presentation. So they're like dance, and then they're like contemporary, blah blah blah, and then they're like something. And then they're like opera, and the opera's usually in the back of the thing. And it's more traditional, the Western European opera vibration that people are thinking about. But it just means we're singing. That's all it means. The whole show is sung. And we're singing the music of our people. We're singing, music that's based in 3 centuries of Black American, music to tell the story. And And that's all it means. It's not even more complicated. And what is really joyful is when people who are very learned in opera really, really write about the show as an opera, because they actually can see what it is we're doing. And when people who are not versed in opera, they're looking for something else that's more of a musical. They're like, why isn't it like Hamilton? And I'm just like, we're not rapping, we're not.
It's its own thing. Yeah,
it's not about this old white man that actually lives. So it's like, it's just different. I don't know. So yeah, my mom really has not. She doesn't really write spoken text in her pieces. When I was a kid, she had other pieces, and she calls them song talks. It's just everything has a melodic energy to it, coming out of the body, and they're mostly congregational. Alexis Pauline Gumbs named Parable as a congregational opera, and I think that's right. Like that's people have been like, it's a folk opera, it's a rock opera, it's a it has a lot of different genres of music, but it's the biggest thing about it is that its narrative is held by the congregation.
I think you hit a point a moment ago. I think we're too binary and rigid when it comes to categorizing and labeling. Let's take a minute to look at the trailer for Parable of the Sower, for the production which ran this past spring, if I'm not mistaken. So if you could play that, Eve.
There's a new world coming. Everything gonna be turning over. Everything gonna be turning over. Where you gonna be staying? 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 Where you gonna be staying?
Oh yeah,
Great. Yeah, it's great. You've been making music for over 30 years. In what ways have you and your music, or at least your approach, changed?
I probably couldn't tell you. You know how you live your life. You just like walking the line. I think the biggest thing is really, my mom telling me to be a producer when I was 13. Like she really had a strong sense that what I was going to do, I needed to really have the capacity to make happen. And I'm sure at that time, I don't think she saw anybody that was like me, that, she would just like, yeah, you're going to have to do it yourself. And so the thing I did was, when I was really young, I went and had internships with this women's production and booking agency called Roadwork in DC. And I produced my first concert when I was 17 of myself. And then I was producing parts of festivals when I was 19. And many of the things that I wanted to happen for me, I either did them myself or I did them collaboratively with someone else. And I think it's not so much a change, but the expansion is just that has just gotten more wider. And at some point, there's like jumps. When I came in New York, like it felt very, I came here because I thought New York's a place you could just play music all the time. It's so big, has so many venues. And I also discovered like its rigidity, that, kind of the same people were in charge of like institutions for a very long time. So if you, wanted to play a certain, summer program, every year it would be the same person deciding if you could do it. And it was just all of this, like, don't do too much because, you won't get to do other things. And one year I just started saying yes to everybody. This was like, they'd be like, you want to play? And I'd be like, yes. And I was like, I'll protect all of these shows because I can know how to produce myself. And so I started to have really good relationships with different venues and different presenters in the city. And the other thing was I was always having surgeries on my hip. So my career would just like, it's weird. It's just like I would get like a big tour and I would go to Europe and go all these places and I get like a huge record deal. And then something would happen to my hip and I have a surgery and I have a year off. And then I kind of always had to start over. And then at some point, I stopped thinking like me being a musician meant I had to take these traditional. I was like, I can be a musician in New York and I can activate from that place and I can build community and I can, you know, offer a sonic vibration that I think will be helpful to our living. And so I went from kind of Toshi Regan a solo, Toshi Regan and Big Lovely, and then Toshi Regan curator, presenter myself. Now Toshi Regan, you know, a theatrical company and all of that. And that's kind of bananas to me. Like every once in a while, I have a company of 29 people.
Wow.
And that's bananas. You know, I just, you know, and the people, and they're like, no, this is real. And I'm like, wow, it's really kind of, you know, wonderful and scary.
It's not an easy thing.
No.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. To be a producer and an artist, they require such different and almost opposing skill sets.
Yeah.
They're two completely different hats. So that you've been able to do both for so long is really impressive and commendable.
But theater is really different. I just have to say, I've been taught. I mean, a bunch of us. There's a nucleus of us, and we've, you know, we've all been expanded by being in Parable. You know, like it really. We all like grew a giant step in our lives because it was definitely like, wow.
To that point, and also as I read in your bio, you've collaborated with many, many artists. What do you find so special or empowering about collaboration?
I just love it. I love to, you know, I can get down by myself, but I love it. Artists and, you know, and some of these institutions, I mean, you know, I grew up with Michelle and Ndegeocello, so we both from DC. So anytime I get to work with her, honestly, she's one of my favorite musicians ever. So I like to go see her play all the time. I think she's incredible.
Has she seen Parable?
Yeah, she did. I think she's seen it a couple of times.
Oh,
she's
great.
she's very supportive, wonderful person. And then Jacqueline Woodson is my best friend, and y'all know Jackie, the author. I love doing music to anything she asked me to do. We just did her book, The Day You Begin, at the Kennedy Center, a musical of that. It was beautiful.
Wow.
And I love collaborating with dance companies. I did this beautiful tap dance show with Michelle Darn. It's called The Blues Project. And then right now, I have this residency at the Met that honestly I should be done with, but COVID kind of put a thing in it. And I went into the Met with Morley, the singer Morley, and the singer Carla Duran, and we recorded our voices in multiple galleries to, you know, to see the effect of the reverb in our voices in the spaces, but also to collaborate with what's in the different galleries and things like that. So I've been making these, you know, very like kind of long, endless pieces, kind of sonic commentary on the experience. I'm having a blast. And then working with Alexis Pauline Gums with the Marine Mammal Meditations is beyond a gift. And collaborating with Adrienne Marie Brown on Octavia's Parables podcast is a gift. And Alexis is going to do the podcast with me this season 5, and we're doing the book Kindred. So
wow, you're doing Kindred, right? And of course, that's also been adapted recently into a series on, I believe, Amazon or Hulu.
Yeah, FX, I think, and Hulu.
FX and Hulu. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the 2 films that you scored that won Peabodys?
Oh my God, they're so long ago. Well, I did that with my mom. So my mom's really in charge. Like she has the awards. I was like, she's like, it's like Bernice Johnson Reagan. But let's see. I think Africans in America, which is like a PBS. That was the most awesome project, and I wish it would come back on TV. It's like 4 films. And so we made a whole block of music, and each of the films had to use the music, but it was the journey of our people and their being stolen and brought to this land. And and then the other one was Bia, a Black Woman Speaks, for HBO. The late Jerry Allen also contributed to that, and that you can see now. That's an awesome film.
Yeah, I actually do recall that one.
Yeah.
You spoke a minute ago about fellowships. Can you talk to us a little bit about the importance and the power of fellowships, especially for struggling working artists?
Well, I don't know. I think some of them work and some of them don't, honestly. Their fellowships or residencies can be a really good kind of, pick you up and put you in a place where you hopefully get some financial support, but also get some needs met, and also get to be in collaboration with a community sometimes, or to just meet other artists. So some of them, will give you like a certain amount of money, and then that's it. That's your money. Like, go spend your money, and you can meet the other people who got it. And I would say the residency, I didn't get really any fellowships for a very, I turned 50, and then kind of in my 50s, I started to get a couple of things, and I was like, wow. So I'm always surprised. I'm like, me? You want me? And but the fellowship I got in the Triangle from UNC was the first time I got something that was very extensive and that would have me in a community for a couple of years. And they were the US, they also, Carolina Performing Arts did the US debut of Parable, but when they gave me the residency, they didn't know if they were going to do Parable. And that's really kind of how the Parable path started. And so I based everything in the residency on Parable. And and activating around the conditions of Parable. And that residency actually kind of taught me how to engage the piece. By the time we got into that room, at Memorial Hall, there was a real reflection of the people who actually lived there. They had done a good job because all the tickets were one price. It was general admission. And we gave away a lot of tickets. And so you got this room full of actually the people who live in that community. And it was invigorating. And that community really helped us with how do we tell a story, and they reacted and recognized where we were in the story. And that was really powerful. After that, we took another jump in our production, and then we did something somewhere else, and we took another jump in our production. So residencies or fellowships and things like that, they can be really good. Now, sometimes they're not well financed for the artist. You can end up being engaged in a very, very big way that actually doesn't sustain you financially in your work. I mean, you almost lose money because you have to, really participate in these certain kinds of ways. A lot of them come with a lot of language and restrictions and things like that. I just be like, look, I'm gonna do this, and you don't
so read the fine print and make sure you're being paid adequately for your time.
Yeah, and make sure you say what you want and what you need, because sometimes institutions have a beautiful heart, and they want to, but a lot of times they may not know what is actually accurate support.
Sure.
And they have to learn. So it's important for artists to teach what they need.
Yeah, I think that's fair and reasonable. Can you tell us a little bit about Word, Rock, and Sword Festival?
Yeah, we haven't done that for 3 years. We hope we get to do it this year. Word Rock Soar was, the festival I made in response to the 2010 incoming Republican congressional people, and they was like vile and disgusting, and they were like trying to do things like, come up with different words for rape so that it could like not actually, be criminalized. And that was when you started to hear like the thing about putting women in jail for having abortions, and very like, very, very hateful for femmes and for women. And, I think they're also, really sparked this thing of trying to halt, us being real and transformative. And so as the non-binary and trans movements start to like really be central in our society as they should be, you can see like, 10 years later, how violent everything has gotten. So Word Rock Soar was like on the cusp of social media starting to be the place where we dumped our frustrations versus like being together and dumping our frustrations. And I just remember I don't know who said it. I just remember like something horrible happened, and I was like, we must be going down to DC like in a couple of weeks because this fool just said this. And it was like people were on Facebook being angry, like da. But we didn't actually go to DC. And so I was just trying to figure out, how do we see each other and offer each other our ears and also our voices? And so I thought, let's do a concert. And then I was like, that's not going to be enough. We should do a conversation before the concert. But then I was like, well, what if we made offerings to each other? So the whole thing was like a week long, and people could make offerings to each other, and they could decide if they want to charge money or not. We work with a lot of institutions as well, like at Schomburg and Joe's Pub and the Brooklyn Museum, and like we've been in different kinds of conversations. And then practitioners can offer classes, and again, like they would be like, how much money should we? And I was like, I don't care, like do what you want. So the idea is really that we have what we need, and we can just offer it to each other in the ways that we want. And but COVID, like COVID really shut it down. And then I was like, well, maybe I can get the concert out. And Le Poisson Rouge just held this concert, and we were just that year like 10. This is gonna be 10, and then that's so we still haven't done our 10th one, so we don't know.
I mean, in light of what happened with Roe versus Wade, it's more timely and urgent now than ever before, huh? To try to get the people back together to respond to this ridiculousness.
Yeah, we need the brothers to hold Roe versus Wade circle. Y'all need to stop playing. I'm like, we need.
No, I agree. It's incumbent upon the men as much as it is anyone else to speak up and push back.
Yes, come through, and also take community responsibility. People who can get other people pregnant by what happens with their bodies, no matter how they identify, can take a community activation and responsibility to hold a line when they see that how violent the response is being when people can't get access to abortions. So at some point, we have to realize, like I said at the beginning, since their agenda is not based on health and care, it's based on violence and owning like this made up money currency, then we have to do the actual health and care and wellness to each other. And you have to jump to the next place without somebody having to mandate it for you. And I feel like people are like acting like there's not solutions, and there are. There's lots of solutions that don't need the government to take care of this situation.
This brings it back to this idea of community, of, on it's full circle. Your music is so deeply personal and very moving. Can you tell us where you draw your inspiration? Who are some of your influences?
Well, I have these three musical moms. I got my mom, Bernice Regan, and I got June Millington. June Millington, and I have Nona Hendrix. And they're all epic, and y'all should just Google them and learn everything about each of them. You know, not necessarily like Nona Hendrix was like, other than my mom, kind of the first Black woman I understood compose music on like, you know, pop, rock, soul records. You know, she's in the band LaBelle, and when we loved LaBelle in my house, and I remember being a kid and looking at the back of the record, and I was like, oh, this is like Stevie Wonder. Because when you looked at Motown records, they would have like the corporation, right, until Stevie Wonder was like, you know. And then you look at the back of LaBelle records, and like half the songs were written by Nona Hendrix. So it was a dream of mine to meet Nona one day. And then June Millington, you know, her and her sister came from the Philippines as kids, and basically, you know, picked up guitars and started, you know, singing. And then they became like, you know, the first like women's rock band, Fanny, to get signed. It has a beautiful movie out about them, by the way. And June, I just was like the first woman I saw, you know, really wailing on a guitar, had a wah-wah and a distortion pedal. And she kind of took me under her wing when I was like 14 years old. And she just started training me. She would do anything she did. She'd make little cassettes and send them to me. Nona did her version of that. And my mom, obviously, you know, my mom opened a big door for me and just said I could walk by her side anytime I wanted, but also just never required me to be like her at all, and really loved the ways that I was. I got big yeses from them. And then I'm really super collaborative and inspired by, you know, all kinds of people and situations. And if I fall in love with you, you're going to get a lot of songs. Like, I love falling in love. I fall in love all the time. And then you get like songs. Sometimes you don't get to hear them, but then you get songs. Everybody great. I love got a song about them. Like it's like
that's beautiful. We'll be taking questions shortly for Toshi, so please start sending them in. So what's next for Parable of the Sower? It's going to be Lincoln Center this summer. Is that correct?
Yeah, Parable's got a beautiful, you know, spring summer tour. It's like if you you know, well, you can go to Toshi Regan's IG, and we're just going to start putting things up. But we start off in Pittsburgh, and then we go to Portland, Maine. We are, you know, blessed the Cranard Center in Champaign-Urbana, which has gotten canceled 3 times. And then we go to Berkeley. We go back to DC. We did DC area last year, and they are doing 4 shows at the Strathmore. And then at some point, y'all, we're going to be in New York at Lincoln Center, which is going to release the dates soon, I hope.
Sometime in 2023? Do you know that much?
We're going to be this summer. We're going to be at Lincoln Center.
Oh, okay, great. That's what I thought. Okay, wonderful. All right, we have a bunch of questions and comments coming in. So first one, was it difficult to secure the rights to adapt Butler's novel to an opera?
No, it wasn't. They were really, you know, like I said, now everybody is hearing about, like, there's movies and there's a TV show and all kinds of things. But, you know, it's very frustrating for all of us who are Butler fans. Like, we don't understand why that didn't happen before. So at the time, you know, they were very kind to me in giving me an opportunity. I had a step-by-step plan on how I could, like, acquire the rights. So I had to have a libretto. I had to do this. And then, you know, we did the workshop, and then another level. And that's how it happened. Yeah, but it wasn't, like, difficult.
Would there be a way to get a video of the opera for teachers or classrooms?
Yeah. So the quick answer is no. And but I'm hoping that it can happen in the future. You know, I have theatrical rights. I don't have like movie rights or film rights. And so when you work with somebody's work, all of those things are divided. And because we don't have the film rights, we're not allowed to make a film of the opera and then like give it to anybody, not even classrooms.
Got it. So here's a comment from Melissa Stuckey. I first heard the songs at Princeton and Dr. Morrison's atelier. That's great. So here's another question. I immediately changed my syllabus and assigned Parable of the Sower in March 2020 when our university went to online teaching. Oh, fantastic.
Okay.
You're a real inspiration. Thank you for mentioning that you gained some of the process in your 50s. I am 59 and truly beginning to find my place in art as an African American, as a place in art and African American research.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can just kind of forget about your age. I mean, it's funny, you know, but how life works. But the whole thing is off. You know, I can't say enough. Like the idea of what is good or what is popular or what is everything it's all off. It's only like 3 or 4% of like artists in the world that dominate like the whole kind of like currency of things. And so if you can hang in there, you can find your way.
Here's a nice comment. Thanks for doing this talk with the Queens Public Library, and thanks QPL. Can't wait for your birthday shows next week, which brings us to your shows next week, which will be at Joe's Pub from January 25th through the 28th. Did I get that right?
Nah, they're January 25th to the 29th.
29th, okay.
Yeah.
So January 25th to 29th.
Yeah, the last show on the 29th will be we'll be doing my mother's music. It'll be a sacred music show.
How wonderful.
But the tickets are on sale, joespub.org, and come through.
Fantastic. I should also say that Queens Public Library will be hosting the Parable of the Sower Book Club at Langston Hughes beginning on March 7th and running for 3 consecutive Tuesdays, concluding on March 21st. The program will be from 4 to 5 p.m. Also, QPO will have more copies of Octavia Butler's books on hand at the library branches this year.
That is so awesome. You all rock.
We try.
Yeah.
Listen, Toshi, thank you so much for your time this evening. It's been a real thrill. And have a good weekend. Good luck with your shows next week. And we're looking forward to Parable at Lincoln Center here in New York next summer.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure.
Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. Be well.